Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Consider the following statements with respect to habeas corpus. It can be issued against both public authorities as well as private individuals. Locus standi does not apply. The principle of application of res judicata is not applicable in writ of habeas corpus even if filed on the same grounds as the first one. Which of the above statements is are correct? The answer to this is 1 and 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here makes a mention of habeas corpus. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first statement, it says it can be issued against both public authorities as well as the private individuals. This happens to be a right statement. The first part speaks about the public authorities. Who are the public authorities? It is those who are given power by the state. The police officers may arrest a person. So this person has to be produced before the court within 24 hours. So the public authorities here stands for all those authorities which have been given power by the government, by the state. So such people who are arrested by the police officers will have to be surrendered in front of the court. So it is applicable to the public authorities and it is also applicable to the private individuals as well. Who are these private individuals? Let's say for example, there is a person other than represented by the state authorities. It can be you, it can be me. In case we have house arrested some person, and if the court of law with the writ of the habeas corpus asks you to surrender, asks me to surrender, or any other person, it is also applicable to the private individuals as well. So it is not just restricted to the public authorities, it is also equally applicable to the private individuals. So the first statement is right. When we look into the second statement, it says locus standi does not apply. What does this mean? Let me explain this for you. Let's say you have a property dispute. What will a property dispute mean? It means it is a case between you and another individual who are parties to this particular case. Can a third party file a case on your behalf? No, that cannot happen. So what would happen? Locus standi means only you would be able to file a case in the court of law. So a specific person who is involved in that particular case filing a case in the court of law is what is called as locus standi. But when it comes to habeas corpus, locus standi is not required, which means let's assume for a moment I am arrested. So would you be able to file a writ of habeas corpus for me? Yes, you would be able to. Let's say you have a family member. Let's say you have a person whom you know or you do not even know as well. It can be a public celebrity. Can you file a writ of habeas corpus? Yes. So locus standi is not required when it comes to habeas corpus. The third option speaks about the principle of res judicata. What is this principle of res judicata? There are two parties in a case. Both the parties go to the court of law. The court of law looks into the proceedings, looks into the merits of the case, and ultimately delivers a judgment in favor of one of the parties. Can the party or another party file the same case without any changes in the grounds in the very same court? No, which is what is the principle of res judicata. So if the judgment is already given by the court of law, the parties would not be able to file the same case on the very same grounds in the same court of law. So they can go to the higher court but not in the specific court, which is the principle of res judicata. But this principle of res judicata, yes, is not applicable to the writ of habeas corpus, but the grounds will have to be different. So remember, the principle of res judicata does not apply to habeas corpus in general, but if it is on the very same ground which the court has already rejected, in such a case it is not applicable. So the third statement is wrong and the answer to this would be 1 and 2 only. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to defamation in India, which of the following statements are correct? Defamation is civil as well as criminal wrong. The civil law of defamation is not codified, whereas the criminal law is codified. Right to reputation is an integral part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here makes a mention of criminal defamation. Let us try and understand what are these options. when it comes to the defamation. What is defamation? There is a reputation of a person. This reputation is an integral part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. This is the right given as per the interpretation of the Supreme Court. What is the reputation? Reputation is equivalent to property of a person. This is about the character of a person. If the character is assassinated, it is equivalent to violating the dignity of a person. So if the reputation of a person is destroyed, is being tried to destroy it, in such a case, a person can file a defamation case on a person who has conducted this activity. So what would happen? When it comes to the defamation, defamation is both civil as well as criminal, which means in case there is a person who has intentionally communicated something false about the reputation of a person, either in written or in spoken form, which harms his reputation, then such a person can file a defamation, which can be civil in nature, which means he can ask for the damages, he can claim the compensation when it comes to the civil defamation. And if it is to do with the criminal defamation, it means that a person who's put up this particular false allegation may also be put behind bars as well. So defamation in India can be civil as well as criminal. The civil law of defamation is not codified. This is right statement once again, which means when it comes to the civil wrong, it comes under the law of tort, which is not codified. But when it comes to the criminal law, it is codified. What do we mean by codification? When it comes to the codification, it means we have a bare act. We also have a section in one of the important legislations. When it comes to the criminal law, we have the Indian Penal Code. In the Indian Penal Code, we have section 499. We also have section 500. So in these two sections, what we have is criminal defamation being discussed. Is there a specific law for the civil law of defamation? No. What we have is the law of torts. What is the law of torts? It does not have a bare act. It does not have a legislation, but taking into the picture previous precedents of the court of law, the judgments passed by the court of law, inference is drawn, which is called as law of torts. When it comes to the criminal law, we have the IPC. When we also have the CRPC, these are the codified laws. Or you look at the Constitution of India, it is codified, it is written. Or you speak about any other law, legislative backing would be provided. But when it comes to the law of torts, these are nothing but inferences drawn by the judicial system in India. So the civil law of defamation is not codified, but criminal law is codified. This is once again the right statement. So the second statement is also right, and right to reputation is also an integral part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So all the three statements are right, and the answer to this would be 1, 2, and 3. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements are correct? Index of 8 core industries is released by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. The ICI is released every 6 months. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here makes a mention of index of 8 core industries. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first option, yes, the index of 8 core industries is released by the Office of Economic Advisor, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, which belongs to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So the first statement is right. When we look into the second statement, the ICI is released every month and not every 6 months. Since the second part of the question is wrong, the answer to this would be 1 only. What about the index of 8 core industries? The objective of index of 8 core industries is to give an advanced indication on the production performance of these industries which are core in nature. And which are these industries? It includes coal, electricity, crude oil, cement, natural gas, steel, refinery products, fertilizer. All these are part of the core industries, and they are released every month and not every 6 months. So the answer to this would be A, 1 only. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to Governor of Reserve Bank of India, which of the following statements are correct? An economics or finance background is compulsory as prescribed under Reserve Bank of India Act. He or she can hold office for a term of 3 years or until the age of 70 years with no scope for reappointment. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is none. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here is speaking about reappointment of the governor of Reserve Bank of India. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first option, it says an economics or finance background is compulsory as prescribed under Reserve Bank of India Act of 1934. This is a wrong statement. Why? Because there is no law for the appointment of the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. Who decides it? It is the central government. It is the appointments committee which will decide who will be the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. So there is no qualification, but he should have a broader picture of the economics of the country. That is one of the criteria. The second statement says he or she can hold office for a term of 3 years or until the age of 70 years. This is a wrong statement as the RBI Act allows the government to specify the term, and at the same time they are also entitled for reappointment as well. So the government can reappoint them. So this statement is also wrong. So the answer to this would be none. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. The Sustainable Developmental Goals were first proposed in 1972 by a global think tank called the Club of Rome. The Sustainable Developmental Goals have to be achieved by 2030. Which of the statements given above is or correct? The answer to this is 2 only. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2016. Why is the first statement wrong? That is because the Sustainable Developmental Goals was first proposed back in the year 2015 and not in the year 1972. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is Raja Ravi Verma. This can be very important from the cultural paper. What are some of the important facts about Raja Ravi Verma? Verma was born on 29th April 1848 in the village of Kilimannur in Kerala to a family of chieftains known as Koil Tampurans. Verma was patronized by Ayilyam Tirunal, who was then the ruler of Travancore. What are the unique attributes of the paintings of Raja Ravi Verma? He was able to paint both the portrait as well as the landscape paintings. He was the first Indian artist to use the oil paintings. He is also known for painting Hindu mythological figures. He also adapted European techniques, adapted the Western styles to the Indian context. All the Western ideas was brought into Indian system, and the classical representation of Hindu gods and goddesses happened because of his paintings. He was able to mass produce number of Indian gods and goddesses, removing the caste bias, thus becoming the champion of making art accessible to all. When you go back to the traditional setup, we had the caste barriers. These caste hierarchies in Hinduism dictated who could actually make use of the images of gods, where these images of gods had to be displayed, and because of his artwork, these caste hierarchies were completely dismantled, and every single caste was able to use the paintings of god and goddesses, thus becoming a champion of making art accessible to all. And his paintings were also secular as well, and it also showcased social and economic realities in India. One of the paintings, A Family of Beggars by Raja Ravi Verma, depicted the sorry state of Indian economics as well. Because of all his achievements, he was also given number of awards during his period. In 1873, he was given Governor's Gold Medal. In 1904, the British colonial government awarded Verma with Kaisar-i-Hind Gold Medal. In 2013, a crater on the planet Mercury was also named in his honor. This becomes very important from the preliminary as well as the mains examination. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.